Last week and this week, this whole question of wealth and dealing with poverty and the poor has been front and center. It's very difficult for me to preach about it. If I was preaching in a parish, most of the people there are families, and the parents and families would look at me and say, "You have no clue as to what the responsibility is to have a family and to take care of that family and be responsible for their care, their health, their future. Don't stand up there, Father, and your celibate self and tell me how we should spend money." Well, okay, I understand. But I'm not the one doing it. I'm quoting the words of our Lord. Now, true, he was a celibate, and he had no family except us, his brothers and sisters. But he's calling on us to take a look at how we deal with wealth. Now, talking to you guys, you don't reject me from that level. You just reject me because we don't even got any money, Father. What are you talking to us for? We're poor college students, you know? Oh, that's a refrain I've heard for 18 years, you poor college students. And so you don't have to worry about what I'm saying because it's not your responsibility. So across the board, the gospel of the Lord goes unheard. Well, maybe I can pose it in a different way for you. This really isn't about money. It isn't about wealth. It's about being blind. It's about being deaf. Money, wealth, blinds us to the poor in our world. It is almost axiomatic. These are not evil people who have money. Wealth is not evil. Having money is not evil. But the danger of money is that it blinds us. It puts something over our eyes that begins to dim our vision. And pretty soon we are blind to the poverty and the need in our world. We cannot hear. We cannot hear the cries of the poor because something is deafening us. It's just a fact of life. I'm telling you a truth. And all you need to do is look at the literature, look at your own lives, examine the past, examine history, and you'll see I'm telling the truth from experience. That's what happens. We get so caught up in possessions, in having wealth, that we become blind to the poor. And they're not our problem. Francis, our Pope, has been doing nothing but talk about the poor. And I think that agitates a few people. Well, there's some other things in this world we need to talk about. Well, according to him, the core of the message of Christ is to take care of the broken, the poor, the powerless. That's the core. And radiating from that core are all the other problems that we will encounter. But we need to address the core problem. But we're blind to it. We're blind to the fact that we live in an economic system, unfettered capitalism would be my best description of it, that demands that where there's a winner, there's a loser. That doesn't care if someone is knocked into poverty or someone is poor. Now, this is what you're giving your yes to as you move into adulthood and you move into the economic system that your parents have been part of, my parents were part of. It is a system that is the blinder. We cannot see beyond our economic, capitalistic system. Half of the politicians in this world say there should be no break on capitalism. Freedom, what the market demands, the market should have, and the hell with anybody who gets trampled. Get out of our way. And that's what's happening in our world. And that's the world you're going to become a part of. And that's the world I want you to at least acknowledge exists. This isn't about giving a dime to the guy on the street or giving some money for us in the collection. This is about recognizing the basic unfairness of the economic system under which we live. And you're going to be a part of it. Well, you are a part of it. You are a part of it. I'm a part of it. I try to divorce myself as much as I can from it, but I can't. But I can at least talk the way I am now. I can at least bridge from where I am to where I'd like to be and talk about that. JP2 had so many marvelous things to say about capitalism. But the American public just wiped him out there. We'll listen to him over here, but what JP2 had to say about capitalism, poverty, our response to poverty in this world, we never heard. Now the new pope jumps in, and we're all saying, boy, I sure wish we had JP2 back again. Well, he was worse than Francis, if you just read what he wrote, trying to catch our attention. We are blind, and I'm not sure it's a sin. I'm not sure it's a sin. When you're blind and you don't know it, can it be a sin? Well, I want to take the blinders off, folks. I want to make sure you know you're living in sin. That's my gift to you today. That's my gift. I hope you're mad. No longer can you sit there and say to yourself, it isn't real. It is real. And the poverty I'm talking about that we need to be most concerned with is the absolute poverty of lack of hope, where there are people who have no hope. And you know what? It's not just about money where they don't have hope. They don't have hope that they're valuable. They don't have hope that they belong. They don't have hope that something is going to change in their lives so that one day they can smile fully. One day they can be filled with joy. There is no joy. There is just struggle and death. That's poverty. We don't see much of that in the United States. There's a lot of need in the United States. There's not much of that abject poverty, but it's rampant in the rest of the world. We have to connect with it. About 12 years ago, a girl named Megan Lashinsky, another girl named Rachel Higgins, were in 8th grade over at Mary Immaculate. And they came to me and they said, are there poor people in Kirksville? I said, well, yeah, I know there are poor people in Kirksville. They said, well, where are they? And you know, it's hard to find them. They hide very well in a small town, a rural community. They're there, but there's no soup kitchen. There's no place where all the poor people hang out. So they're hard to identify. And I said that to them. But these girls kept looking. And finally they said, we're going to do something for those people who need food. And they started Hope's Kitchen. I mean, it's still going on. They've been long gone from Kirksville. But Hope's Kitchen is the work of 2 8th grade girls who knew they should go look and see if there was something they might do. And 12 years later, they're not solving poverty here, but they're giving us a beacon, a beam that we can look at and say, there is something we can do. We are not powerless. We can reach out. And so that's something that should be leading each one of us. What is it that I can do? And they didn't do it as individuals. They do it as a team, and then they got more people, and the team is what finally brought it to be. So I challenge you on that level. Now, the other thing that is very difficult for us is that we have, and I believe almost all of you do, the notion that poor people are lazy people. Poor people are lazy. Get a job. Work harder. Do better. And we resent giving them our hard-earned money. I remember when I went to St. Louis, oh gosh, this is 30 years ago. And I was living in a parish in an all-black community in St. Louis. and it was Halloween. And the pastor gave me 2 boxes of these giant candy bars, okay? And he said, Butterfingers. I'll never forget. Butterfinger candy. They're big. They're great, you know. And he said, give these out to the kids. And so I stood, the light was on. I stood at the door and I waited. The bell would ring. And I give these kids the candy. And then the doorbell rang, and there was 4 kids with masks on, and I gave them the candy. And then about 10 minutes later, the doorbell rings again, and there's 4 kids without masks on with their hand out. And I gave them the candy. And then I realized it was the same 4 that had been there 10 minutes ago. And it made me mad. How dare they take advantage of me? How dare they cheat me and come back twice? So I closed the door, turned off the light, and nobody got any candy bars after that. The saddest thing of the story is they weren't even my candy bars. But don't tell me you haven't acted that way yourselves. I'm not letting anybody take advantage of me. He's going to waste it. She's going to waste it. They won't spend it the way they should. We have these judgments about people who come through town. I bump into them all the time. And the vow I've made to God is I will not judge them or even ask them why they need the money. I will simply give it to them. I'm not there to judge whether their need is real. It's obviously real, or they wouldn't come and ask for something like that. It's humiliating to come up to somebody and tell a story about how miserable you are with your hand out. I won't do that to them. I'll give them the money and send them on their way with God's blessing. I don't need to know if they are tricking me or not. That's what it's taken the last 30 years for me to learn. And you got to yourselves look at our own church, the way we give out money, the way our nation gives out money. If these people are cheating on food stamps, nobody should get food stamps. And you've heard that time and time again. If people are cheating with aid to dependent children, the WIC program, they're taking advantage of that. Nobody gets that money because nobody takes advantage of my money. And you know what? It's not even their money. It's pennies. We've got a long ways to go to look at how money cants us, gives us, if we can see, a terribly mixed up view of this world. So, I pray with you. I ask God to open your minds and your hearts to these people. There's a guy who graduated 2 years ago who sent me a text the other day, and it was absolutely wonderful. He had never spoken to me about anything I'd said, never came to me for advice, but I knew him pretty well. And he said, I was just reading what Pope Francis said about globalization. And how globalization is, the effect of it is to put poverty at such a distance that we don't notice it. And Pope Francis, he said, tells us we need to weep for the poor. And then he said, I remember, Father, twice you told us we need to weep for the poor. And he said, I want to thank you for being my pastor. I was just very much taken by that. I was very much taken by the idea that it really didn't count until the Pope said it. But at the same time, all of us need to weep for the poor.